My name's Owen. I'm 32 years old. I'm married for a year now. Me and my wife, we're residing in Long Island. We are living in a rather old house. According to our knowledge, we're the fourth owner of the estate, existed for 30 years now. As all newlyweds, we're not rich, so both of us decided to pick up this estate, being the most affordable for us. The house is rather sturdy, even after many decades. The only catch was its rather old-fashioned design. Whoever built this lodging and owned it first must be someone rather wealthy. However, after 6 months residing here, there were strange things that occurred to us that defied all logical explanation. One evening, my wife and I were having our time watching movies in the living room. It was a rom-com, which was ruined at the climactic moment as I noticed something in the corner of my eyes, enough to startle me to a yelp. "What's going on?" My wife, also startled, asked me back. "There's a pale woman behind the TV, hun." She just laughed it off, saying that I'm seeing things, despite the fact that I have tried to describe that woman for her. Pale white figure, sunken eyes, but she wasn't buying it, telling me that I was hallucinating things that weren't there. Another time, I had to relieve myself in the middle of the night. When I was in front of the sink and watching myself in the mirror, she came to me again. She was right there behind my back, and this time I was able to see her more clearly. Emaciated, pale, with sunken eyes. The sight was more than enough to send me running to a panic attack. The third time I saw her was when I was cleaning the floor. She was walking rather heavily, slowly toward the basement behind the main house. She was wearing a long dress, a type of which went out of fashion many years ago. Singing along the way, with her haunting voice echoing along the hallways. She looked pregnant with swollen abdomen. This time my wife did consider what I told her, but she instead thought of me having psychological issues due to overworking. Why the heck am I the only person seeing things when my wife's immune to that shit? So I decided to purchase a more modern house in downtown area with a 20-year payment plan terms. I would go nuts staying here any longer. The house now I'll redecorate and put it for rent. To fasten the paces, I chose the hourly rate cleaning service. There were too many things to clean up here, so it took more than a day to complete. With cleaning up complete, we have finally decided on what to carry forward and what to discard. However, the two cleaning staffs said about a rather heavy metal chest in the basement that they would like to have me help in carrying it upstairs. I knew about this chest the day we moved in, but due to it being very heavy, we decided to leave it there for good. It took all four of us a lot of work to finally haul it out of the basement area. With things finally arranged, except for the heavy chest, we could finally rest. Tomorrow I'd deal with it. Likely it would need to be towed away. That was our final night here at the old house. However, weird things started to come up again. There's a lot of creepy sounds coming from the metal chest. First was the weeping of a woman. Then came loud bangs echoing from within the chest. Last but not least, the wailing of a child wheezing from within the accursed object. I could barely sleep while my wife sleeping soundly that night. The next morning, having enough of it, I decided to open it up. My wife nagged at me for being unreasonable, but I couldn't stand it any longer. I felt an urge to open it up, to come to terms with all of my suffering. So I pried it open with all my strength. A nasty smell from within assaulted my sense of smell, gagged me up, forced me to vomit under such nauseating stench. My wife threw me a look of concern. For her, I was being unreasonable, and now was reaping the consequences. After calming myself down, I decided to look inside the chest, and immediately regret that decision. The first thing I saw was human feet, then arms, and finally, a human face. All was submerged within a fluid of something like paint. Now thinking back, I wished I did have a mental issue like my wife said. At least I could forget what I'd seen there. So I called the police, fighting the nausea the entire time. The police said it was the body of a woman. She was heavily pregnant at the 9th month by the time she was dead. Needless to say, we were in a state of shock and panic at the news. She was found shrunken to a fetal position, still clutching within the out-of-fashion long dress. The same one that I had seen her in the mirror with. After thorough examinations, they found the chest originated from an industrial factory only 12 miles away. However, the chest model was out of commission a decade ago already. Me and my wife, we also provided the information of the previous owner to the police. They quickly found the third and second owner after backtracking, tracing it up to the very first owner. The two previous owners claimed that the chest had always been there when they moved in. That thing, however, was so heavy that they all decided to just leave it there, and then it was forgotten. So the police searched for the first owner. His name's Thomas, the builder of this house, and also the owner of that previously mentioned factory. However, he'd passed away 3 years ago due to a heart attack. Thomas had a wife and a son who's almost 30 years old now. After mentioning about the body in the chest, they claimed no knowledge about that. Thomas divorced his wife when his son was only 4 years of age. She's been living away for all this time, only receiving alimony arrangement from her previous husband. Because it was related to Thomas, the body within was likely his mistress. So the police suggested a DNA test of the unborn child and Thomas's son. The match was solid at 25%. They were indeed half-siblings. The case, however, was only 50% completed. There's still a lot of questions going unanswered, like who's the killer and what's the motive for the killing. But the most haunting for me was when I was looking at Thomas's picture. He and I were uncannily familiar.
My name's Fiona. I am 32 years old. I had just ended a 10-year relationship, so now I'm residing alone in a Park Vista apartment in Chicago, Illinois. I'll be honest, it's kinda tough trying to balance things after the nasty breakup. But I'm fine, I thought to myself. I'm strong, I'm tough, and things gonna be alright. I'm finally away from such selfish, control-freak bastard. It's about damn time I set myself free. And so last Sunday, I spent my entire day finally free to do whatever I like. About midday, 12 o'clock, I had brunch while joyfully browsing the internet. I came across an advertisement about a surveillance closed-circuit camera, CCTV, that, as the developer said it, totally suited with families wanting to keep themselves safe. According to them, this product deemed to be the flagship model of the next generation, sparkling smart. It could capture both video and sound in crystal clear quality. Come to think of it, they said, it's a must-have for families with children or elderly living all alone by themselves, so the rest of the family would be able to keep an eye on them. I am convinced with that conclusion. They were damn right, I thought to myself. I'm living all by myself in this city. No friends, no family. Not even a single acquaintance was living here. A surveillance camera at the porch maybe wasn't a bad idea. Now, with the discount program was still in effect, I didn't hesitate in purchasing the item right away. It arrived at my doorstep a few days later. My excitement was well-founded. The instructions were clear enough that I am able to get it set up with just a few steps. Mobile connection felt pretty solid. Everything fit like a perfect jigsaw puzzle, and I had set it up over the front door. I was pretty sure that I wouldn't need any men at all in my life. I was the empress of my own life, with full helm at the palm of my hands. Imaging and audio was as advertised, good and solid. I am very impressed with the 360 view of this camera. Also came with a unique function, intruder alert. To test the function, I ran out and back in. Didn't take very long for the phone to register the alert. This function must be pretty universal. It's just me living under a cave, I thought to myself. I'm contented with being in the good deal. That night, the alert notification jolted me up from my sleep. That turned out to be the intruder alert, sent via the camera. Groggily, I checked on the camera. I noticed that all around me being very quiet. It was 3:13 in the morning. There wasn't much convincing for me to just turn the phone off and go back to sleep. However, for many days afterward, the camera kept sending me the notifications at exactly around 3:13 in the morning, despite the fact that there wasn't any sign of intrusion at all. After a while, I decided to contact the supplier about the issue. They told me to restart the device and reset the connection. Pretty sure it's just a simple software bug, they guaranteed. I told them sternly that if things kept going this way, I'd return the product and ask for a full refund. That night, I went to bed pretty worriedly. And then, just as clockwork, at 3:13, the notifications came. Same issue with the intruder alert function, the same issue that kept me awake for the last couple of days. This shit had me awake for days now, so I'm kind of pissed off with that. So I decided to forego checking on my phone, but instead charged straight out of my bedroom. After I opened up my door, the frustration was still there. Nobody's outdoors, so the problem here is the goddamn camera. So I got to the chair, climbed up to take that camera down with all the haste. However, it's not as easy as I installed it. The removal process is kind of messy, and it made me very frustrated. I just wish I could scream my guts out. At least it would calm me down. Yet, I couldn't. There are other apartments. So all I could do was swallow it down, get back to bed, and try to get some sleep. I returned to my bedroom, picked up my phone, and planned to disconnect this goddamn camera from my phone. I will return it tomorrow, I thought, opening up the apps. In order to turn it off, I must go through the main page with the footage of myself lying on the bed. However, in the corner of the screen, there's something really scary happening. A large figure. The figure, though I couldn't make out the shape, seemed to be smiling at me. The hair on the back of my neck stood straight up as the figure came forwards and put a hand over my shoulder. I couldn't sense its touch. Is that a person? Is that a supernatural being? I pulled the sheet over my face, shivering at the crazy thing I had just witnessed. It was only when the morning alarm went off that I was jolted awake, my mind stretched by all the half-awake and surreal experiences. Everywhere around me was a blur between reality and nightmare. Though I temporarily left it aside, I still had work to do. And so I went to work that day, paid little attention to what I had seen last night. After a long day at work, I went home and headed straight to my bed. I literally collapsed the moment I hit the mellowing pillow. Though I was once again jolted awake by the phone's notification. It was the intruder alert once again from the camera, though at this time around, it was indeed an intruder. I was startled at the sight of someone's head. It appeared to be a very tall, statured man. I carefully adjusted the camera angle to see better. However, the man had been maneuvering very close, so I couldn't make out his face. There's the sound like lockpicking over my doorknob. It made me shudder. Someone over there was trying to break in. Before I was able to do anything, the tall man lifted his face up directly at the camera lens. It was Joyce, my obsessive ex-boyfriend. But it was really strange. Wasn't he in Traverse right now? Joyce seemed to acknowledge the fact that he's being watched, and he said, "Do you remember? I will always find you, alive or dead." Joyce smiled his creepy smile, with blood flowing out from his mouth, nostrils and eyelids. It was haunting to even look at. I was panicked at the sight of it, my body froze in fear, unable to make any moves. The phone screen flashed continuously as the footage became more and more grainy. After a few seconds that seemed to last a lifetime, the footage cleared out again. Joyce's face reappeared, this time even more haunting than ever. His face was distorted all over the screen, twisted bizarrely as if impacted heavily by an unseen force. I screamed aloud. My chest burned with terror. All I can do was to call the police and my parents, sobbing the entire time. The police did not find any forced entry attempts at my apartment doorway, like at all. The apartment complex and the surrounding public security cameras also couldn't provide any solid appearance of Joyce. The only footage available was the ones I provided on my phone. My mom and dad took the first flight to come to my aid late this afternoon. I burst into tears as they arrived. After the situation had calmed down, they bombarded me with questions full of suspicion. "Fiona, my dear, are you certain that it was Joyce? Don't you know what happened?" I did not know of anything and threw them a bewildered look back at them. "Joyce is dead in a serious traffic collision 3 days ago. His body was found wedged between the car and the freighter, so..." I was perplexed at the information. 3 days ago was March 13th. 0313. His word rung aloud. "I will always find you, alive or dead."
The following story still haunts me to this day and prevents me from pursuing any more relationships. At that time, I was a senior at Johns Hopkins University and living in a busy city. One day, I accidentally discovered it in the pending messages section of my Facebook account. A beautiful girl sent me a greetings. The time the message was sent was nearly 2 days ago. Being a young man and always available for a relationship, I quickly replied to her message without much thought. We started our first messages like any other courting couple. She is Jess, 23 years old and lives 120 kilometers from my city. Quite far, but it's okay. Distance is not a problem for me. Jess and I sent each other photos of ourselves. Jess really fits my ideal girlfriend with long, straight hair, healthy brown skin, and a bright smile with even teeth. I was really surprised and impressed with her interests. Horror stories and images always excite and interest her. This contrasts with Jess's sweet appearance. We talked for a while, and it felt like we got along very well. I repeatedly expressed my desire to video call to see Jess's face, but she always had a reason to refuse. Our distance was quite far from each other, so Jess replied that we would wait until another time when I said I wanted to visit. I happily agreed. I must have liked her quite a bit. Jess will suddenly send me a scary photo of a place or a severed part of a person or animal while we're chatting. At times like that, I was quite startled, but then I laughed, thinking that it was Jess's strange but also very interesting hobby. One time, Jess sent me a picture of herself looking scary. She was wearing pajamas full of red stains, which I thought it was blood. Her face was gaunt with many small cuts. They were bleeding and swollen. Her brown hair was long but messy and had many rough cuts here and there. Jess is completely different from the photos she sent me before. It took me a few minutes to calm down and was about to text her a question when I received a text message from her saying she was attending a club masquerade. She really knows how to surprise me. But the frequency of her sending me scary, bloody pictures of herself increased, and I started to feel uncomfortable with it. There's a photo had a small knife stabbed through her biceps. The other photo had her whole body tied to a pole so tightly that her face turned purple. I kept telling her to stop these acts. The beauty and sweetness she had was gradually disappearing. A week later, I didn't receive any other messages from Jess. Was she angry because of what I said? My mind kept thinking about Jess. I decided to press the video call button, but she didn't pick up. I don't have any more contact information for Jess. Maybe she just disappeared. Looking back at the photos Jess sent, I was startled. How could she tie herself up like that? One afternoon after returning home from school, I was happy to see a parcel placed in front of my house with the sender's information written on it as Jess. I couldn't wait any longer. I went back to my room and immediately opened it. Inside the red gift box was a lot of hair and a pair of eyelashes. I observed closely and immediately felt a cold feeling down my spine. there's something like a patch of skin stuck to the eyelashes. So these are real eyelashes? The question flashed through my head. I panicked and picked up my phone to contact Jess, but her account had been deleted. I immediately called the police and explained everything, but I don't have Jess's phone number, home address, or any other personal information other than her Facebook account. The police used the hair and eyelashes I provided to investigate and identify a girl named Jess in the next town. She lived alone, working as an employee at a small supermarket near her home. Go through the photos Jess sent me. Pay close attention. Those photos are all in the same location. It was a rather small, dark room. Now I noticed Jess's eyes, the pain and helplessness. Those eyes seemed to be begging for help. What really happened to Jess? I have a hunch she's kidnapped or held captive. Are those eyelashes and hair hers? I was haunted by the image of Jess. I admitted that I really liked that girl, even though I had never met her. I'm Jax. I was 31 years old. I thought I was handsome with blonde hair, blue eyes, over 6 feet tall. There are many interesting persons I've met, but I'm still waiting for the one who's really right for me. On the flight back to visit my family that summer, after all the check-ins, I sat waiting for the boarding time. A man sitting in the opposite row looked at me intently. He has toned muscles, healthy brown skin, curly hair, and a high nose bridge. He wore an elegant black suit. I think he was on the same flight as me. The flight was suddenly delayed by 2 hours because the destination was having bad weather. I had to play games on my phone to pass the time. About 30 minutes later, I was startled to see that man still looking at me, smiling, friendly, and waving. I was a bit surprised and waved back. I was actually quite impressed with that appearance. He proactively approached, introduced himself as Alex, 33 years old, and working as an engineer in Texas, which is also my hometown, coincidentally. He said he noticed me from the first time he saw me. That's right, he's gay, and so am I. People like us will have a special feeling about people who are similar to us. Alex and I follow each other's Instagrams. I want to get to know Alex better. The flight finally took off, and we sat quite far apart. Landing at the Texas airport, I got my luggage back. Alex pulled 2 suitcases and happily walked towards me. We asked each other about the next destination. Alex said there was another package. Alex asked me to hold the 2 suitcases and quickly return to the baggage gate. I didn't think much and happily agreed to wait for Alex. But he hadn't come back for 30 minutes. Looking at the clock, it was almost 10 p.m. Another 15 minutes passed. I tried contacting Alex via Instagram several times, but to no avail. Both mine and Alex's luggage were 4 large suitcases. I couldn't drag them all over the airport to find him. Hunger and fatigue made me frustrated. Alex called me back, apologizing very much for keeping me waiting. Because something unexpected happened, Alex left the airport first. Alex told me to go to the address he texted and sent a private driver to the airport to pick me up. He wanted to invite me to his house for a meal to thank him. I felt better after receiving Alex's call. Alex's personal driver is a man taller than me, with a fierce face. The car he picked me up in was quite old, cluttered with bottles and jars, making me feel uncomfortable. The driver took me to a small, shabby house on a deserted road. I looked around bewildered, got out of the car and went inside following the driver's instructions. The house was dimly lit, had a strong, musty smell, and had an indescribable cold feeling. I walked very slowly, looked around as I walked. The driver was still walking behind me and staring at me. I started to feel scared, told the driver to call Alex to come and get the suitcase back and I would wait here. He didn't answer or do anything, just stood there staring at me. Taking a few seconds to try to calm down, I quickly walked towards the door, saying as I walked that I had something urgent to do first and would text Alex later. The driver immediately stopped me. I was stunned. There was a noise behind me. Before I could figure things out, the driver grabbed my arms and restrained me. He forced me to go deeper into the dark house despite me asking a lot of questions. He pushed me into a room. In front of me was Alex with a strange smile, holding a sharp knife. The room was cluttered with strange medical equipment, many of which were still covered in blood. On the wall hung many photos of different men. They will lose any part of their body or have knives or scissors close to their skin. Their expressions were extremely painful and panicked. The middle photo and also the largest photo is a photo of Alex and the driver taken together. They posed with extremely intimate gestures and smiles as if they were mocking viewers. So panicked, all I could do at that moment was run away. I tried to struggle away from the driver, but his strong grip held me firmly. Alex grabbed my hair with one hand and held it tight. His other hand slowly brought the knife towards me. I begged in fear, but Alex continued to bring the knife. Alex and the driver burst into perverted laughter and were extremely satisfied when they saw me begging and shaking. Just as the tip was about to touch my face, the loud sound of police outside surrounded the house. Alex and the driver looked out in surprise. I took the opportunity to get up and escape. Running outside, I saw 3 police officers along with my father looking at me worriedly. On the way with the strange driver, I had texted my dad about my situation and sent him the location. Luckily, he arrived in time. Alex and the other driver were arrested. They're actually a gay couple. They target gay people like me, terrifying them with blood and wounds, satisfying their perversion with screams and begging. Everything is completely different from the kind and handsome appearance that Alex has. His face and that disgusting smile still haunt my mind to this day.
I'm Lisa, living alone in a comfortable apartment in Seattle, Washington, USA. When we got down to the parking lot, the air was cold and gloomy, with only a few cars parked overnight. One week, I signed up to work overtime at the company until late at night. I remember it was Tuesday. I lazily left the office at nearly 10 p.m. When we got down to the parking garage, the air was cold and gloomy, with only a few cars parked overnight. I approached my parking spot, panicked when I saw the car had a black skull painted on it. I went home, frustration lingering within me all night. The next morning, I asked the security guard to review the security camera in the parking garage. I want to know the bastard who did the trick. But the camera quality was very low. Only seeing a black shadow, I parked the car in quite a dark location. I had to swallow my anger and let him go. That evening, I still got off work late like the day before. Learning from experience, this time I parked the car near the camera. I carefully went around to check, seeing that the car was still intact. I felt secure in opening the door and sitting in. Suddenly, there were clicking sounds followed by savage laughter. It echoed in the quiet night space of the car tunnel. Startled, I grabbed the steering wheel tightly. A few seconds later, the laughter stopped, and I took a moment to calm down. Even though I'm a woman, I'm a rather brave one, and I don't believe in ghost stories. Slowly opening the door and getting out of the car, I looked around. The clicking sound rang out again. I concentrated on listening, slowly sat down and looked under the car. What caught my eye was that wrinkled face, that creepy smile, and that savage laugh. I pulled out a devil toy. It was probably made on Halloween. "Who the hell is doing this?" I muttered angrily. I walked around the parking area but couldn't find the vandal. That silly thing took me a lot of time. It was already 12 o'clock when I got home. The next morning, I went to work late feeling tired and lethargic. My close colleague Evelyn asked me worriedly, "Are you okay, Lisa? Don't work too hard." Receiving a cup of coffee from Evelyn makes me feel more comfortable.
Talking a little about Evelyn, she is Asian American. I love her beauty. Don't tell me you're still working overtime tonight, right? Evelyn asked. I smiled and nodded. She looked surprised and helpless, then left to go back to work. By 8 p.m. that night, I was exhausted. My mind couldn't work anymore. I decided to go home and rest early. Going down to the basement, heading towards the parking lot, I heard someone mumbling. The closer I got to where I parked, the clearer the whisper became. I could hear the content of what that person said were scary curses. Walking faster, my heart pounded when I realized there was a figure standing next to my car. I ran over, but that person noticed and immediately ran away. He ran so fast I couldn't keep up and lost track of him. Returning to the parking lot, I was startled to discover a strange object. It was a small piece of yellow paper. Drawn on it were very strange characters. I guess they were charms. I've heard of witchcraft, but it's not really popular in America. I was so shocked. I couldn't believe I would fall into this terrible situation. On the drive home, I kept thinking about the talisman. I asked myself a lot of questions about myself and my relationships. That night was truly terrifying for me. I was half awake and half dreaming, always feeling like someone was lying next to me. A cold hand was placed on my arm. I was fully aware and felt but unable to react. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. That cold hand gradually touched my neck and squeezed hard. I widened my eyes in fear, my body still stiff even though I tried to struggle. The hand squeezed even tighter. My neck hurt. I sat up, opened my mouth wide, and inhaled as much as I could. I'm using 2 hands, squeezing my neck tightly. I fell into a daze and sat like that all night. It wasn't until the next afternoon that I arrived at the company. I wore a silk scarf to cover the bruises on my neck. Looking around, I couldn't see Evelyn. I asked my colleagues. They said she had a serious car accident last night. The garage guard said that she panicked and ran away quickly out of the parking garage, and at that moment, a car came. During that afternoon, I thought a lot about Evelyn. Now that I'm married, my husband is the one who helped me get through that difficult period. I am working as a department head and continuously succeed with large projects. As for Evelyn, she has been in a vegetative state for the past 5 years. I still keep the video recorded by the hidden camera I placed in the car. The images of Evelyn with an evil look in her eyes that I had never seen before.